Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented as always by Full Press Coverage. Check out fullpresscoverage.com for other great podcasts and articles, including this one. Well, this is a podcast, not an article. You can also check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/JetStryer. That is my personal YouTube page. I am being very kind and allowing Sap to share it with me because that's the sort of benevolent show host that I am, Sap.
You're very benevolent, but the only problem is I look like a fool at times because I don't really have a background yet. So I'm moving around in my room in front of a wall and a door, which is about as creative as nothing. So I got to still work on that. And also last time we did the podcast, I was far to the right, which, kind of led me to believe that the only way out of that is saying that I'm like a great film director like Martin Scorsese, who, when he directs a scene, sometimes he'll have the person to the far right, and then you can see what's going on in his life. To the far left, there's a famous scene in Taxi Driver where Robert De Niro playing Travis Bickle is on a phone. There's 3 different phones, and then Scorsese pans away and then has a long shot going down the hallway as if to say that this man's life is going down an empty hallway or whatever. I hope I'm not Travis Bickle. If I show up in a mohawk at some point, I've completely lost my mind. But, have fun with me. Do I look like I'm centered on this particular edition?
Sap, in fairness, though, Fox News has made a lot of money putting their hosts far to the right. So you could do that. Get that little pun there?
I got that
clever?
pun, but that's not me politically. I lean a little to the left, not all the way to the left like, say, you do, but I generally lean pretty much to the left. I mean, there's some issues I'm down the middle. There's some issues I might even be a little bit to the right. I think all thinking people kind of react like that. You're that way as well. There's certain things that you are not far left in. You're more sensible in certain things. So hopefully I look nice in this shot on YouTube because I normally don't, and I'm working on a new background. And this has all got me confused, Jet. But thank you anyway.
It's a nice door. It's a very nice door.
Isn't it a nice door? Yes. Leads to my bathroom.
You can tell the craftsmanship is, A1. The crown molding, really nice. Yes. It's just it's a quality door. So it's an upgrade from wall. You've gone from wall to door.
Yeah, it's a headboard with pillows. So there's only 4 sides to this room. Like if this doesn't work, we're gonna have to spin around. I'll have my TV and coffee pot in the background, and then after that, one more spin around, and it's gonna be a window with blinds. But we'll work on this background. I mean, I could get the hell out of this room, maybe go into the lobby of the hotel and do the podcast there. The only problem is, unless we're doing it in the afternoon, recording in the afternoon, there's a crowd out there, at the bar, yelling, screaming. So they're probably going to think I'm completely weird. They already know I'm completely weird. And it all depends on when we record these podcasts. I like doing them mid-afternoon because I'm an early riser. So I've got my A game right now. You're someone who is nocturnal.
Yeah, so I basically sleep right now.
Yeah, you're asleep right now. So that's
I'm in a daze.
Yeah, it's mid-afternoon. You've probably just awoke. You're looking for breakfast right now. There's times you text me at like 4 a.m. and I answer it because I'm just starting to get up a little bit, or I'm in between, snoozes and have to go to the bathroom to do what 58-year-old guys do in the middle of the night. And you're still up, so that's pretty good. We'd be great roommates because at all moments one of us would be up. So there'd be no issues with protecting the property.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying because there's been, actually some break-ins in Newton where I live right now.
Really?
My dad. Yeah, strangely enough, my dad was texting me about it. I said, "Yeah, no one's breaking in. I'm up at the times. Any sort of thief would run into me. I'm up at thieving hours.
Yeah,
so
that's like
the house is protected.
You would have got along great with my sister who passed away 10 years ago, but I lived on the floor below her, and at like 11, 12 o'clock at night or later, I could hear her vacuuming, washing the floors. Like she was nocturnal as well. The rest of the family, we're early risers. So yeah, we'd be pretty good as roommates. We wouldn't even need to bear arms to protect the property because one of us would be up. And I don't think you really need to bear arms in Newton, but who knows? Maybe Newton's becoming a rough neighborhood now.
Yeah, that would fit perfectly with my personality because, I've got a very rough upbringing, and I know
Me too, right? Yeah.
I know all the martial arts and that sort of stuff. So I was thinking about actually just going into UFC SAP if this podcast doesn't work out.
I think you'd work as what, a welterweight, maybe even less.
Oh boy, yeah. I don't think I'd be a welterweight. I'd have to. What's a welterweight? What's the weight class?
137.
Oh, you're right. I would be a welterweight. Yeah, I got
Can
a little bit of a belly now.
Well, yeah, you'd have to get in shape. But Roberto Duran is the greatest welterweight ever, so I don't think you would want to be fighting a prime Roberto Duran like circa 1974. That would not be a good spot to be for you.
I do wonder, and we've gone way off track here, which I don't care about. If I would be a good boxer. My great grandfather on my dad's side was a semi-professional boxer, and apparently was ranked like second in the state of Massachusetts at a period of time. And then he got a flu or concussion or something like that, and became really religious and really crazy religious, and gave up boxing. So it's in my family's blood. Maybe if I had pursued it, I would have been good.
I would think that you'd be very combative. You're pugnacious.
I am pugnacious.
Yeah, I mean, your favorite players in the NBA are who? Marcus Smart and Jimmy Butler, all the a-holes in the league.
Patrick Beverly.
Patrick Beverly. I'd be the guy that would get hit once and just, throw in the towel. I'm a big softy. I'm all about talent, right? So
you're Italian, Sap. It's got to be in your blood.
Well, we've had many great fighters. Yeah, absolutely. Rocky Marciano, undefeated heavyweight, who I think, quite frankly, is overrated. He could not have.
They would kick you out of any Italian club you're in right now, Sap. They would immediately boot you. You can't say that.
No, I brought that up. I said he could never.
It's like if I said Sandy Koufax was overrated.
Right. Was an overrated pitcher. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Rocky Marciano. No, Rocky Marciano couldn't have beat Muhammad Ali or any of the great heavyweights. He was 190 pounds. Ali was 220 and had about a 1 foot advantage in terms of reach. So we have gone off the deep end here, which is pretty good because, again, I'm in my room trying to figure out how to create a better background for the podcast. You got to give me a deadline so that I can, I like deadlines.
Tomorrow.
Say that's too soon, Jet. That's, it's not life or death, although it's pretty close. Give me a deadline. My birthday's April 25th. So by my birthday, we will have a very nice background. In fact, I'll put that out to family members that I need things to put behind me for the podcast. And I think they'll come through because they still think I'm like 12 years old. It's kind of interesting. My family threw me a 40th birthday party, and there was a girl there that I liked a lot. She was from San Diego. She looked like Bo Derek. We just were friends, which is always a turnoff. Well, she was like, "You've been my best friend since I moved here." I'm like, "Oh, great.
Bummer.
That's exactly what I want. I got plenty of friends. I don't need any more friends." Everybody at the party brought me Barry Bonds stuff. I got a Barry Bonds dish, a Barry Bonds pennant, a Barry Bonds T-shirt. I'm like, I'm 40 years old, people. And the girl was just sitting there laughing. I'm like, I have no chance now. I mean, are you going to get me Barry Bonds sheets? I mean, I'm 40 years old. I'm not De Niro in The Fan. And people thought that movie was based on me, which it's not. But I'll let the family members know they got a couple of weeks to get some background for the podcast. They'll come through for me because I'm spoiled being the youngest child in the family.
Well, I'm thinking then you probably don't want that nice woman from San Diego to attend this birthday party then if you're going to be asking for.
No, she's married now with kids, so I did not.
Could have been you, Sap. If not that for that birthday party, it could have been you.
That just blew it. You know what it is? My sister threw it, and she did not want me with that girl, so she said, "Let's make this." No, she actually liked her. I'm only kidding, but Italian sisters never want to lose their brothers, so she's like, "We've got to." Make this not work. So let's bring out all the Barry Bonds stuff. I'm sitting there going, I'm 40 years old. Can someone just buy me like scratch tickets
or their party
something
hats,
that looks
all
San Francisco Giants colors. The whole party was,
nice.
Black, orange, and off white. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds like a heck of a party.
Exactly.
I'm disappointed I wasn't invited, Sap.
You'll come to my 60th birthday party. It'll be a LeBron James theme at that point.
Yeah, probably Aaron Rodgers co-themed party.
Yes, Jeopardy. We'll have it on the set of Jeopardy. LeBron
James has a new teammate, but he hasn't played with him yet, Sap.
Mm-hmm.
Professional transition.
Excellent.
What if you're the Laker guy here?
Mm-hmm.
What are your early thoughts on basically the 1.5 games that Andre Drummond's played for your black and gold? They're not the Steelers.
They're purple
and gold.
Right.
Purple and gold squad.
the first game, he looked impressive, but then he got hurt. His big
He said his toenail fell off, right?
fell off, which
God.
sounds, oh my Lord. That's nails to chalkboard, right? Especially a big guy like that,
Yeah,
6'11",
that sounds
275.
awful.
That does really sound awful. I mean, there's got to be nothing worse than that. You know when sometimes you bite your fingernail a little too far down, how much it hurts? So just imagine the entire toenail coming off your big toe. But last night against Miami, thought he looked pretty good. He had 15 points, 12 rebounds in 27 minutes. He looks to be in better shape than I thought he'd be. He hadn't played for like 6 to 8 weeks, but he kept himself in really good shape. So he was moving better than I thought he would. Look, they're not going to win or lose the championship because of Andre Drummond, but it's a nice piece for them, right? Once LeBron James and Anthony Davis come back, you can make a case that he's their third best player. This is a man who's led the league in rebounding multiple times. He's got a pretty varied offensive game. It's a nightmare situation when he goes to the free throw line, although last night he was 5 for 6 from the free throw line. And obviously this is really going to be the first time that he's playing in meaningful playoff games. He's 0-8 in 2 playoff series, but he was the 8th seed. No one expected the Pistons to beat whoever they were playing in the first round. I've been impressed so far. They needed that. And then they added Ben McLemore, who can be a 40% three-point shooter.
I like that signing.
I think that's a sneaky good signing because
I want the
you never
Celtics
have enough
to get
three-point shooters. Look, the league, it's almost like the NFL. You can never have enough cornerbacks. In basketball, you can never have enough three-point shooters. I mean, you can run an offense with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and 3 3-point shooters, and that would be tough to deal with because LeBron's going to spot the open man, and he's also going to create some mismatches there. So that was a sneaky good signing. But so far, so good with Drummond. I'm happy with the move. Yeah,
I thought that last night, was it the game against Miami last night? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking they were going to look to him more for offense. I mean, he had a double-double. He had 15 and 12. But I was thinking maybe it's because he's hurt or something like that. I was thinking they were going to try to like really run the offense through him and try to get him, to score in the 20s. And they lost that game, but it was pretty close. They lost 104 to 110, and it was in Miami. But I think I figured with LeBron and AD out that he's going to be the focal point of the offense. But maybe I'm wrong, and that's just like I'm just thinking back into 2002 when that would be a thing.
Right, exactly, because he really is a true center, right? Because Joker and Embiid can expand their game out to beyond the 3-point arc. Drummond isn't really that guy. I mean, even Karl Anthony Towns can go out and hit and making hit threes. But the thing with Drummond is I was impressed with his how mobile he was, but also in that game, I think they were happy to see KCP starting to heat up from 3 because he was a pretty important player in the bubble last year throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, but do you think that matters, or do you think he's just going to be streaky no matter what?
He's streaky. I mean, most of these bench guys or marginal starters, which KCP is, they're all streaky. I mean, that's what defines great players like LeBron, Anthony Davis, and all these other fantastic players to Jags, right? Guys that are just, one night are going to be really good. One night they're not going to be so good. The Lakers are going to need Drummond to step up every night. And they're also going to need Dennis Schroeder to step up every night. He was horrific against Miami. He was 2 for 12 from the floor. That's not going to help matters. But again, it's a game in early April. There's still a month and a half left of the season. Look, they're not going anywhere unless LeBron and Anthony Davis are
everybody acknowledges that, right?
This is just an exercise in futility. But I just want to see how these other guys are stepping up going forward. So far, so good with Drummond.
Do you put any stock into Drummond hurting the chemistry of the team with Marc Gasol now being sort of upset about his, I guess it's not even really a marginalized role. He is going to have virtually no role, it seems like. So do you put any stock in that? Because Gasol's a well-respected veteran in the league.
Yes.
And probably a guy who's well-respected in the locker room. I know LeBron's there, but Gasol, must have some cachet, I would think.
He was part of the championship team, right? He's been Defensive Player of the Year, which he's, robbed from LeBron back 6 or 7 years ago. LeBron should have been Defensive Player of the Year that year. He was on the first team, all defensive team, and Gasol was on the second team and somehow won that award. But I'm not petty.
No, of course not.
Not at all. But I think what happened last year, it worked for the Lakers because not only were they the most talented team, but they were the most together team. And maybe it was because of the bubble, because of LeBron's leadership. He got them all together to buy into that. how many times in the postseason last year we'd see Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee not even playing, right? Because they would go with a smaller lineup with AD at the 5, and AD does not like playing the 5. But Howard and McGee were on the bench cheering on their teammates. I don't know if we're going to have the same feel this year on the bench with Gasol.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So do you think it's hurt the chemistry?
That is a point. It could, but Gasol wasn't playing well enough to really be that impactful. He was starting to come around a little bit.
No, I get that. He wasn't. You're not wrong at all. But he does seem kind of down in the dumps now and clearly unhappy about it. I mean, there's a difference between accepting that you're not playing particularly well and not accepting that you're playing particularly well. And I think he knows, because he's been around long enough to know where his abilities have diminished to where they were. But I do believe that he probably feels like when he signed with the Lakers, there was a wink and a nod that he would be the starting center regardless of what his performance was. And so I think maybe part of him, fair or not, is feeling a little like hoodwinked by LA, that they brought in somebody to essentially replace him in the middle of the season.
But they needed bodies, right? Last night, I think they played with 8 players because there was, a suspension.
I don't blame the Lakers for doing it.
Yeah, you have to add talent. And this is as much about AD being out for a month and a half and is going to be out probably for several more weeks. They needed some size. So at some point, they'll figure out what they need to do. And this changes from series to series, right? I mean, if you're playing the Clippers, maybe you don't need to go with Drummond or Gasol all that much because the Clippers really don't have a dominant big. But if you're playing Denver, well, then you need someone that can maybe get physical with Jokic. So every series is different. So I think that they'll have the pieces on the floor, on the bench, and they'll figure it out as they go along, depending on what the matchups are. They had to do something because, right now they could be in danger of falling to the 7 seed, which I told you scares the hell out of me, because then they would have to play the 8th team one game. If they won that, then they'd be the 7 seed. If they lost that game, then they'd have to play the winner of 9-10 to be the 8th seed. And look, anything can happen in a one-game play-in. I know the Lakers, if AD and LeBron are healthy, would have the 2 best players on the floor. But I've seen strange things in the history of this league where in one game, an inferior team can beat a better team.
Yeah, I get that fear because it's that March Madness thing where it's like, one game a team gets hot from 3 and you're cold from 3. I mean, do you think LeBron would really let them lose in a one-game situation?
No, I wouldn't see that. No, I don't think that would happen. Because look at his numbers, because that becomes essentially a Game 7. There's never been a player in the history of the sport that's been as productive in Game 7s, with the possible exception of Bill Russell because he always won them. But LeBron's done an incredible job in Game 7s, not only winning them, but also dominating them. I mean, his numbers go through the roof in Game 7. So, I would.
Michael Jordan fans would say, just don't let it go to a Game 7, Seb.
Well, in this scenario, you got no choice. It's a one-game play-in. Michael Jordan lost the best of 3 to the Celtics. He got swept. So, it can happen.
So I'd say, okay, early returns. Yeah, sure. Drummond looks good. That's the one thing I would be concerned about, though, is if the chemistry gets screwed up because Gasol is unhappy. And they're going to have to, LeBron's going to have to probably take Gasol aside and talk to him and say, hey, like, you're still important to this team, whatever. And I don't know, work some sort of locker room magic.
Put him in his next movie, right? Maybe Marc Gasol.
Yeah, put him in his next movie. That's sure.
Absolutely.
I think the player who's been maybe showed a little bit even more than people were expecting is Lamarcus Aldridge. The early returns are pretty good in Brooklyn. He's played 4 games there now. He just is coming off Wednesday, his best game as a net. He had 22 points and 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks on 8 of 12 shooting in a win over the Pelicans. In 23 minutes. Every game he's played, he played 30 minutes, 26 minutes, 29 minutes, 23 minutes. So he's played substantial minutes, and every time he's taken the court for Brooklyn. And he's looking like not Lamarcus Aldridge all-star, but certainly Lamarcus Aldridge high-level contributor.
Absolutely. This move looks brilliant by the Nets because he does give you position versatility. I mean, he's got a great mid-range game. I've always compared him to a poor man's Tim Duncan. He plays kind of a unique game. He can also go out and hit threes as well. He's also shown some ability to be a good defensive player. He's averaging 2 blocks per game since he's been in Brooklyn. That's going to help the Nets out because their defense is mediocre at best. If he can help that defense, he'll be invaluable in the postseason. I mean, the Nets can put out so many different lineups, right? Obviously, you've got Durant, Harden, and Kyrie. Those will be the 3 constants. But now you could put Aldridge out there with, say, Jeff Green, who's playing really well as a role player. You got Joe Harris, who's a knockdown 3-point shooter. That obviously Blake Griffin, he's had some hits and misses so far with the Nets, but you're not asking Griffin and Aldridge to carry the team. So it's probably a relief for those 2 guys because Griffin was supposed to carry the Clippers along with Chris Paul to the promised land. It didn't happen. He signs as a free agent with Detroit, had a couple of decent years there, but nothing really materialized. Aldridge could only take Portland so far. And then he went to San Antonio, was supposed to be the next Duncan. Well, he's not the next Duncan. He's a poor man's version of it. Now he's in a situation where he's the 4th or 5th best player on the Nets. That takes a lot of pressure off a guy like this. And I think in the postseason, he can win a game for them. I think Blake Griffin can win a game for them, provided, say, Durant, Harden, and Kyrie have an off night. One of those guys have an off night. Pretty good option to have Aldridge as your 4th best player. He's been a success so far for the Nets.
Yeah, I think that was the signing even more so than the Griffin and Drummond signings that really seemed to raise the the cackles of other GMs and teams and players, because I think they knew that Aldridge still had a lot more game left in him than Griffin, and that Drummond, as great of a rebounder as he is sort of limited in today's NBA. So the addition of Aldridge to Brooklyn, I think, really got a lot of people up in arms because it seemed like, well, they don't need this at all. It's such a luxury to have a player like that who still has plenty of game left in him. He may not be an all-star, but he's still, you can't leave him open from mid-range. He's tall. He can rebound. He can block shots. It's a piece that Brooklyn didn't need, and now they have it anyways. So it's just one more guy to have to defend and think about for the Nets. So I get the frustration from other teams and players and fans' standpoint that it seems like Brooklyn is it's an embarrassment of riches that they've had. And he remains a dangerous player and a good player, and he's played well, which doesn't surprise me at all. Griffin's been not as consistent, but he's showed, I think, a little bit more than what he had in Detroit. He's had 4 games since he's been a Net where he's scored in double figures. He's also, he's had a couple of games where he's had 2 points, 8 points, 5 points. So he's not even close to what he was when he was an all-star. Aldridge is a lot closer to that. I'm not saying he's an all-star still, but he's a lot closer to what he was than Griffin is. But the fact remains that those 2 guys are still quality NBA players, and the Nets didn't even need quality NBA players to add to their core to contend for or win a championship. So it's just a situation where the rich get richer. And with the Lakers adding McLemore too, as you alluded to, Sap, these teams are getting the best guys really on the buyout market. And so I could see a change where it's a 1 per customer thing. We talked about this, I know, the other day on the podcast, where it just seems like you don't want the 2 favorites to also be the 2 teams that add the most in the buyout market too. It doesn't look good.
No, and I think you go back to the Nets situation. Aldridge can be their 4th best player. Griffin could be their 7th or 8th best player, right? Because you can make a case that Jeff Green is better than Blake Griffin. Joe Harris, especially in the postseason with his ability to knock down threes, is a more effective player than Blake Griffin. And I think the difference between Aldridge and Griffin is Aldridge doesn't rely solely on athleticism where Griffin does. And as you get older and you've had injuries, that athleticism gets sapped. So now you see Griffin more as a role player, where Aldridge, there were times the other night against New Orleans when he looked like the 2nd best player on the court because Harden was out. Kyrie may have been on the bench, and Durant was doing what Durant does. It was damn scary. They scored 79 points in the first half against New Orleans, which, again, doesn't play defense. I don't know what they were thinking when they hired Stan Van Gundy. I mean, that's going to be a constant on every podcast is, why did New Orleans hire Stan Van Gundy to be their coach with those young players? But nonetheless, Aldridge has been a success. Griffin, again, he'll be there. There may be game 3 of a series where they're a little bit out of it, and he recaptures his prime for 16 minutes in a given night and goes out and scores 12 to 14 points, and it helps them win. It's nice having a guy like that on the bench. But you're right, Jet. It's to the point where, the rest of the league is looking and going, why did Brooklyn need to add these guys? Why do the Lakers need to add these guys? The Lakers, you could see, because they had injuries. You didn't have LeBron. You didn't have Anthony Davis. So you got to go find someone. With Brooklyn, you knew Durant was coming back, and now Harden's out, and people are thinking it's just more about load management with Harden than really him having a hamstring issue. Who ever heard of someone going out with a hamstring injury and they'll be back in 10 days? That's not the way it works with that. That would be the slightest of hamstring injuries. That'd be like me having a cramp when I get out of bed in the morning and, have a glass of water and it's gone. So I didn't mean to get into too many details there, but that's exactly what they're doing. It's probably load management with Harden. And when he comes back, they'll give Kyrie some time off. And then when they get to the postseason, they'll all be refreshed and really, really difficult to beat.
Yeah, that's clearly what they're doing is they're giving all their guys rests. And I don't think the Durant injuries that he's had over the course of the season have been nearly as serious as they've made them out to be or what the amount of time would indicate that they would be. And it's a smart strategy that they've had that I think will bear a lot of success in the postseason because they'll be healthy, fresh bodies. But I think that the funny thing is that I think the Nets is my favorite right now, and unless there's some injuries, I don't see that changing. But if they win, the same criticism that's been lobbed against Kevin Durant since he joined the Golden State Warriors years ago are going to continue to be lobbed at him. It's not going to get any better for him. They're going to say you had to add all this stuff just to win a championship, and they're going to. We talk about MVP awards weighing different in some years versus other. Championships way different in some years versus other too. And I know you've talked about and you love to talk about the championship LeBron won where he came back from 3 games to 1 because yes, that was a very impressive feat and that championship means a lot. But I think a lot of people will look at it and I'd say fairly as the Nets loading up and winning a championship that doesn't weigh as much as if it was just Kevin Durant and Kyrie and they went out and forged and fought and won a championship. I think that would mean a lot more to KD's legacy and to how people view him than what this will be, which is I think people are just going to look at it as more of the same from Kevin Durant, which is, well, he doesn't want to be on a team where he has to really scrape and claw and win a title that way. He wants to just be the front runner that, loads up and everything's easy for him.
The only slight difference, Jet, would be when he went to Golden State, he joined a 73-win team that had won the title the year before he joined them, or 2 years before he joined them, right? Right, because they went 73-9, and LeBron came back with Kyrie Irving and won that series after being down 3 games to 1. That is LeBron's greatest championship because, it was him, it was Kyrie Irving, it was Kevin Love, there's a lot of role players, and to come back from 3-1 in the finals, down 3-1 in the finals had never been done before, and they did it against the team that remains the team with the best regular season record in league history. I don't even know if anybody's going to ever break that because of load management. Golden State went all in that year to go 73-9, and maybe it cost them a championship. Maybe they were just out of steam by games 5, 6, and 7, especially Steph Curry didn't look like himself at the end of that series. But the difference is Durant went and joined that. He's the guy that started it in Brooklyn, right? He goes there, Kyrie goes there, then they bring in Harden. Now they're adding these pieces. So I might cut him a little bit of slack because I'm not a Durant hater. I'm not. I may be the only person who thinks LeBron James is the greatest player in the history of the sport, but I don't hate Kevin Durant. His game is, especially his offensive game, is perfect.
No, how can you hate his game? You can't rip on his game.
I don't even blame him for doing what he did because everything's measured by championships, and that's the mechanism you can use, right? You can go play with whoever you want to play with.
Yeah, but it's not competitive, right, Sap? I mean, I know you can do it, but it doesn't mean that it's
But it doesn't always work, though. It doesn't always work. I mean, and now this is a little bit different. Barkley and Pippen joined the Olajuwon, but they were on the back 9 of their career. In fact, they all were looking at the clubhouse at that point, whereas Durant was right in his prime when he joined Clay, Steph, and Draymond all in their prime. It wasn't fair. You're right. But if we're going to judge players by titles, that's what you have to go do. I mean, Carmelo and Gary Payton, they were a lot longer on their careers than Durant was. They joined the Lakers. It didn't work out. So
yeah.
I'm not going to necessarily just hate on him because of that.
Well, if he wins, let's say that he wins this year, Sap, does adding another title, does it move the needle in terms of where he ranks all time in terms of people viewing him this year with this team? Does it move the needle for you?
Probably not a lot because he also missed 20-odd games during the regular season. I count the regular season. I know a lot of people think it's just a nuisance and that we only talk about the postseason. The regular season means something, right? Because that's where you establish yourself. I mean, when you get to the postseason, obviously you start to put yourself where you are in terms of all-time greats, right? I mean, Karl Malone has impeccable regular season stats. He wasn't able to step up in the postseason. He gets punished a little bit for that. I would take Charles Barkley over Karl Malone. Neither guy won a championship, but I think Barkley was a slightly better player. I think Durant's better than both. If he wins another title, maybe he distances himself a little bit from them. Yeah, but I mean, can I see Kevin Durant at some point cracking the top 10? I have Oscar Robertson at number 10. He could potentially surpass Oscar Robertson for 10. I can't see him surpassing Kobe or Tim Duncan. I can't.
I think that frustrates him. I think that he looks at himself like he should be better than those ahead of those guys. And if he had won a title or two in Oklahoma City, I think that people will be looking at it a lot differently than right now. So I don't see things getting better for Durant in terms of how he perceives himself and other people perceive him, regardless of what happens at the end of the season. Another team, Sap, that is in contention that for some reason you are now petrified of as a Lakers fan are the Clippers.
Oh yeah,
because of one Rajon Rondo. He made his Clipper debut last night, correct?
He played a few minutes in a few other games, but that was really his Clippers debut because they were playing Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns. That woke him up.
Yes, and he that was a big game, a marquee TNT game, and Rondo came off the bench to the tune of 19 minutes, 5 of 8 from the floor, 3 of 4 from 3. Why not? And 15 points and 9 assists as the Clippers are victorious, 113-103. That moves them just a game behind, I believe, the Phoenix Suns or something around there.
They're the 3 seed right now, and I'm frightened of the Lakers being the 6 seed and the Clippers and the Lakers meeting in the first round. And look, I fear Kawhi Leonard. He's one of the 5 best players in this league. He's won 2 finals MVPs. I don't think he really deserved either one, but he did win them. Paul George doesn't frighten me at all. I don't think he deserved either finals MVP. I really don't. I mean, I guess you had to give someone the finals MVP in 2014 because San Antonio won. I mean, you could have given it to Duncan. You could have given it to Ginobili. You could have shared it with 3 players like the Dodgers did in 1981 when they won the World Series and had 3 MVPs in the World Series.
It just bothers you that him and LeBron have both won finals MVPs with different franchises. So you like LeBron to
wait a second,
to have less crowded company.
No. LeBron's won it with 3.
Kawhi's won it
with 2. So 3 is greater than 2. I know it's a tough concept to accept.
Kyrie deserved it the year LeBron won the Cavs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he hit the big shot.
He did hit the big shot, but, the other guy made a ton of great plays for 7 games, including the block, which to me was still the iconic play of that series. Although if Kyrie didn't hit that shot, we may still be playing that game because no one could buy a basket down the stretch, which does happen in Game 7s of finals, believe it or not. It happened with the Lakers and the Celtics in 2010. That's what happens. But Rondo scares me because he's won 2 championships. He's fearless. He's a great leader. I think he's going to get the most out of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and I think they breathe a sigh of relief because now they don't have to be the leader of that team. Kawhi Leonard is not a leader. He's not communicative. Paul George is not a leader. Rondo is going to be the guy who, in the huddles or on the bench, is going to make sure that whatever Ty Lue wants to get out there, that Rondo is going to be the conduit to those players. Let's not forget, a few years ago, remember the Celtics were down 2-0 against the Bulls?
Yeah,
they had lost both games at TD Garden, then they went and won the next 4 games because Rondo was out. I think if Rondo doesn't get hurt in that series, the Bulls probably beat the Celtics in that series. So I mean that's the type of effect he has in the postseason. Yeah, he scares the hell out of me. And look, if
are they going to eventually start him, Sep, over Patrick Beverley?
I wonder if they don't. and just say, look, because Beverly, I mean, you talk about a loose cannon. Patrick Beverly's a loose cannon. Is he going to feel slighted if he's not
He
starting?
was ejected last night.
Yeah, somehow he's the guy who ruins every party. Maybe they'll just leave well enough alone. And Rondo, who is 35, is in a place in his career now where you can say, you know what, I don't care if I start or come off the bench. I'll come off the bench and do what I need to do, because he's a perfect guy to come off the bench because he's such a smart player. He can watch the first 6, 8, 10 minutes, analyze what the team needs, go out there and fulfill that. So I think that's probably going to be the best spot for him. But he scares the hell out of me. Absolutely. I mean, he was huge in the finals for 2 games. Now, the other 4, he wasn't all that great, but the 2 games he was great in were pretty close contests, and he helped put them over the top in that series with the Lakers winning over Miami. So, yeah, in 2-3 months, we may be talking about, of all the players that moved through the buyout or at the trade deadline, that Rondo has the biggest impact of all of these. That could be a possibility. It wouldn't shock me.
He's got the pedigree. I get it. And,
right.
You're adding, Kawhi's won 2 titles, and now you're adding Rondo, who's also won 2 titles to that mix. The rest of those guys don't have that championship level experience, and Rondo does. So adding another guy who knows what it takes to win a title, that's never a bad thing. And he's still clearly got plenty of game left in him. So yeah, I think it was a great move to get him. I wouldn't be as petrified of him if I was a Lakers fan as you are, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he does make the difference in this series. As far as that potential 3-6 matchup, like I said the other day, they're probably going to play each other anyways. So if I was the Lakers, I'd rather play him earlier, honestly, when your team has more energy.
They'd have more energy, and if the Clippers start winning series, maybe their confidence goes higher. This is an organization that's never been in the conference finals. So if you meet them in the conference finals...
Hard to believe that. It's possible.
It is, really. I mean, they've had some great players there, right? I mean, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. A long time ago, they had Bill Walton for a short period of time, but the injuries just
Michael Olakandi.
Totally ended. Yeah, that was
Danny
a great
Manning,
player. They had a lot of first picks in the draft that just didn't work out because of injuries or just having that first pick the wrong year. Like I said, Olakandi came, I believe, the year before Tim Duncan or the year after Tim Duncan. The year after Tim Duncan.
Yep,
Duncan was 97,
98.
Olakandi was 98.
Yep.
But there's the difference. That's where you got to be lucky. But they've never gone that far in the postseason. So if you get them in the conference finals, now they're rolling. Maybe Paul George is playing with more confidence. So yeah, you got to play them at some point. So why not do it in the first or second round? And again, the West is so much deeper than the East that these teams are going to be killing each other in the very first round. And those first round matchups in the West are going to be fascinating, where in the East, there's Brooklyn, the favorite, Philly, Milwaukee, and then nothing else, really. I mean, even Miami still looks to be short this year. So that's going to be difficult. But Rondo's a guy that, I respect the hell out of because he's so smart. And he also played with the Lakers last year. So in a short series, he's going to have some knowledge of what the Lakers to do. Yeah, I mean, you're going to talk about Rondo and LeBron, probably along with Chris Paul, I would say the 3 best brains in basketball. They'll be calling out each other's plays. Like they'll know exactly what they're doing. And that's an advantage that the Clippers will have with Rondo, the Lakers have with LeBron, and the Suns have with Chris Paul. These guys they're like quarterbacks that can look across the line of scrimmage and diagnose the defense, whether it's Brady, Aaron Rodgers, whoever. These guys have that type of intellect.
I do love the makeup of this Clippers team in terms of they have, I think our friend Kendrick Perkins would say, they have a lot of goons on the team. They got Rondo. If Cousins hangs on to that, I know he's on a 10-day contract. Cousins, Pat Patterson, Morris, Beverly, as you mentioned, guys that will clothesline you, a la Kevin McHale, no problem. Yeah. So they're a tough team. They're not going to be fun to play against. They're going to bang around with you, and they have guys that really want to win and will do, are willing to get ejected clearly from games. So, I mean, I get that there's some fear, but I'd still, again, put my money on the Lakers coming out of the West, but that's just from, years of experience seeing LeBron torture teams in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But it does seem like Rondo's making an early impact and could certainly make a big impact come postseason. So before we wrap up, Sap, there's one more story we wanted to get to, which is I guess a weird budding rivalry between Draymond Green and Megan Rapinoe. Draymond Green, obviously, of the Golden State Warriors. Megan Rapinoe of Team USA Women's Soccer. This is all surrounding the equal pay movement when it comes to female athletes, specifically the U.S. women's team, which is far superior than their male counterpart in terms of success rate, getting paid less. Green is on the side that there should be equal pay, but the way he kind of went about explaining it was rambling and a little bit incoherent and sort of putting too much of the onus on the women to, get out there and make their case. And so Megan Rapinoe, I think, who is the leader of this charge, took issue with Draymond Green, the way he said it. And, Green is then taking issue back saying, I'm on your side. Why are you calling me out? What are your sort of takeaways from what's going on here?
Well, Draymond doesn't necessarily have a strainer between his brain and mouth, and that's why I love him. I think he's going to be fantastic on TV when he retires. He'll be like the next Charles Barkley on TV, someone that has opinions, is smart, but doesn't always, think things through, which is authentic and raw. I love it. The problem with this is that the USWNT negotiated a bad deal for the women, right? So they looked and wanted to secure guaranteed money rather than kind of have that X factor of more or less, right? Whereas the men's team negotiated a completely different deal. So now they're paying for that. When the next deal comes about, hopefully they negotiate themselves a better deal. And then they can earn more money. Obviously, they've been much more successful than the men. That's not even a debate. But the men do still create quite a bit of revenue. So that's what the issue is. The women do create a little bit more revenue.
Win the World Cup. The men don't even qualify for the World Cup.
They don't even qualify. But if you're creating the same amount of money, that's where the problem lies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also the women's representatives did not negotiate a good deal. Next time in, have more faith in yourself rather than cut yourself short, right? So you look at like a great actor. Like I know you love The Godfather like I do. I think it's arguably the greatest movie ever made. Marlon Brando, first of all, he had to do a screen test to get the role of Don Corleone. He was only 47 years old when they filmed that. But he had a string of misses and was considered toxic. So the studio didn't want him, but Francis Ford Coppola wanted him. He took less up front, but a percentage of the gross. And in the end, he made about $25 million because he had confidence in himself and he gambled on himself and he won. That's what I would tell the women to do. Set the goals higher. Don't take like a lower guarantee so that you're safe. Go all in. You're good enough to do that. Be confident in yourself, and I think that will right the wrong. The ones, and this has nothing to do with Draymond Green and Megan Rapinoe, is when people will say, why do the WNBA stars not make as much as the NBA stars? Well, here's a very simple reason. The NBA, first of all, owns the WNBA pretty much, right?
No,
the NBA so the NBA creates $7.4 billion a year. That's with a B, $7.4 billion a year. The WNBA, which is a really good product. I love watching women's basketball because in some sense, I think you can learn more watching the women than the men because the men do things that you go, I could do this in my sleep. Not that I could do anything that the women are doing, but it's a different game. They create $60 million, which is less than 1% of what the NBA creates. So they're not going to make the money the NBA players make. Now, flip that. Gisele Bündchen is the biggest model in the world.
Right.
All of the female models that are in the top 10 or top 20 or top 40 make more than the biggest earning male model because they create more money. That's what it comes down to. So it's not a sexist rant by Draymond Green. I think he could have maybe painted it a little bit better. When you come out with something like stop screaming and yelling about it, that does sound sexist, right? It's like, just be quiet and fight for it. So that I could see would be a turnoff. But his message was essentially, I'm on your side. You're going to have to like speak up and fight for this and just get better negotiators. Don't take the guarantee and then, leave all that other money on the table. Believe in yourself and gamble on yourself, and you'll win. They're damn good.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Sap. You can't just look at it as on the surface. Obviously, men and women should equal work, equal pay. That's a great concept. And at a company, if a female CEO should be making the same as her male counterpart because it's the same company, right? Mm-hmm. Or same equivalent job. But when you're talking about revenues earned in a sport that is basketball is the same sport, men's and women's. Yeah, they play it differently, but the NBA is earning so much more revenue than the women. Well, it doesn't make sense to pay the women the same amount as the men because they're not bringing in the same revenue. It's a business. You have to compensate the people who are bringing in the most money. That's just common sense. As far as the women's and versus men's soccer, they're bringing in almost equivalent revenue. Mm-hmm. So the women, the female soccer players have far more of a gripe than the NBA players.
Absolutely, right. They should be making more money, but again, they negotiated this deal. Now,
yeah, and I think what she's saying,
tear it up at some point, but let me know the business that tears up deals that favor them. They just don't do that.
What she's saying in response to Draymond Green is that I think he just didn't understand the issue well enough. He's saying,
probably
not. They should get paid equal, but he's saying they need to advocate for themselves more and make their voices louder. And what Megan Rapinoe is saying, well, you're not listening. We are making our voices really loud.
Yeah.
We're using every platform available to us to be able to do it. What we need is more platforms to be able to do it. And so I think he just isn't paying attention to what they're doing and or giving them credit for what they're trying to do. And I think that infuriated her and a lot of female athletes. And I think that's fair. It's not that he's against them at all. It's just that he spoke it from a place of lack of understanding or education on what exactly is going on.
That's why Draymond's going to be great on TV. You don't need to have facts to be successful on TV. Just blurt things out, bloviate, and you'll be a success. That's why I like Draymond. And maybe this is what I would do if I was Subway. I know we get the Draymond, Jason Tatum commercials. Let's do a Draymond, Megan Rapinoe commercial for Subway. I think it'd be good.
Okay. You want to lose Jason Tatum money? That's very mean. He's got a young son to feed.
Yeah, because the Celtics are paying him $39 million a year. He's endorsing potato chips. I think he's probably in good shape. From what I understand, Jason Tatum hasn't even touched his salary from the Celtics. He's living on endorsements, which is brilliant because Rob Gronkowski did that for most of his career with the Patriots. Smart move. No, I never begrudge anybody making money, but you can have a different set of commercials, a different campaign with Draymond and Megan Rapinoe. In fact, you know what, Jet? That's going to be my next column.
She should kick soccer balls at him. Maybe that would make her happy.
He's the greatest defensive player ever, so he'd be pretty good at it.
He probably would be a pretty good goalie. He would be probably a very good goalie.
You know who'd be the greatest goalie of all the basketball players?
Dikembe Mutombo.
Take a guess. No, you don't want to have someone that big. You got to have someone that's athletic, that has like great hands and et cetera. We mentioned him earlier in the show. I think he'd be a phenomenal soccer goalie.
Rondo?
Yes. Oh,
he does have gigantic hands.
Gigantic hands, and he's so smart. The soccer goalie has to know angles, right? I mean, he's like a borderline genius. Doesn't he play Connect 4? Which
he loves Connect 4.
Kind of that feels.
I don't think that takes a borderline genius. It's a
Connect 4. Game. No, but he's really good at it. He's competitive.
He is good at it. Yes.
But he knows angles. He's just look at the way he passes. I think he'd be a phenomenal soccer goalie. There's another column, Jet. All these columns are pouring out of me. I would build a soccer team. So there's 11 players in soccer with NBA players.
I like it.
You like it? Like I would want to put.
Now do the inverse. Let's see how well you know soccer. Build an NBA team out of soccer players. What position is Megan Rapinoe playing?
Probably point guard.
Yeah, they're all playing point guard because none of them are tall.
Point guard, yeah, that's the only problem. But even if we did with the men, like Ronaldo would be a shooting guard, right? I mean, he's a sniper. Messi would probably be the point guard, or vice versa. I mean, I don't.
They're all point guards.
Enough about soccer. They're all really good, and they all play really good defense. Because the worst guys to play pickup basketball against are the soccer players. Oh my God, I used to hate playing
against them
because. No, not that they flop, but they pick you up like 94 feet. I remember playing pickup games, and
I do that too.
I'm like, I'm like bringing the ball up the court. I'm 78 feet away from the basket, and this guy's up my ass. I'm like, who the hell do you think I am? You think I'm going to like beat you?
Just post him up from all the way there. There you go. Start backing him down from beyond half court.
I was a point guard. I loved Magic Johnson. They used to call me Tragic Johnson.
Yeah. Well, did you have a hook shot? The baby hook?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lefty hook, actually, because I learned to do a lot of things left-handed because the first time I started playing basketball was in my neighbor's driveway, and the way it was configured, you couldn't really go right all that much. There was only maybe 7 or 8 feet facing the basket to the right, where there was more room on the left. So I always learned to shoot from the left-hand side of the court, so I worked on my left shot. I was ambidextrous. I was both. I was bad with both hands.
Did you play with the Kurt Rambis goggles?
No, I didn't have glasses back then. No.
Oh, okay. No. Well, maybe that's why you were Tragic Johnson. You couldn't see the.
That's true. Yeah,
couldn't see the hoop.
I couldn't see. It's like Jim Rice playing baseball. He refused to wear glasses. If they had LASIK surgery back when Jim Rice was playing, he probably would have hit 700 home runs.
No, maybe he's still alive. Maybe he could go back.
Yeah, come back. Yeah,
never too late. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Talked a little boxing, talked a little soccer, and we did get to some basketball. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was actually you know what? I think the best shows are when you do go a little bit off topic. It's not as rigid. I think those are the most fun things to do. So, Sap, until next time. Check out fullpresscoverage.com for this and other great podcasts and articles. All the articles I'm giving Sap great ideas for. And check out our YouTube version of this show at youtube.com/JetStryer. See ya, everybody.